Welcome back to the Graham Stephan Show, and today I'm about to rip my eyeballs out because we're watching some of the cringiest, worst financial advice that exists on TikTok. That's right. We have scoured the internet to find these videos and bring them to you guys to show you just how crazy the internet could be as soon as you hit the like button and subscribe, because I promise this is not going to disappoint. Thank you so much. And now let's begin.
But he said once you have $20 million, like, you can have everything. Unless you want to buy a jet or a yacht, like, you're set. But for me, I'm like, I'd burn through 20 million and like...
Dude, I could spend 20 million before you could say 20 million. Like,
and I even think like 100 million's not a lot.
This is the guy, I remember him. He copied Ricky Gutierrez, who did this video, how much money he makes. It's like day in the life of an entrepreneur. And this guy makes the exact same video. In fact, he copied Ricky Gutierrez word for word. He got the same shots in the same places, said the exact same things. And Ricky's video is like a day in the life. And he's really going and like sharing his experiences and, some inner thoughts that come out throughout the day. And this dude just copies him word for word. I even made a video about it, going over just the similarities between the two. It was absolutely wild. But as far as the content on this, I don't disagree with Andrew Tate. I think for 20 million bucks, for most people, you could achieve 95% of everything you'd ever want to do, minus yachts, planes, and just some crazy, ridiculous money-wasting activities. Like no, you can't go and buy multiple Bugattis and Koenigseggs on your private jet, and you go off on a yacht for like years. Probably not going to happen. But for most stuff you'd ever want to do, 20 million would be more than enough. For this guy, though, it sounds like he's just saying some rage bait. He's just saying whatever comes across his mind to get the most engagement possible, and it's working. So, you know what? Congratulations. He fooled me. Here we are reacting to him because he said some rage bait. So, congratulations. That's all I have to say on that.
Worry more about what you want to do rather than what you want to be. The people I find that are most successful are the people who say, man, I'm really interested in computers and figuring this stuff out, and then they end up being a Bill Gates.
It's true though, the people who aren't out there chasing money, like money's not the only objective. They find something that they're really good at that they would be doing for free, and if it just happens to make money, usually it happens to make a lot of money. The people who are absolutely passionate about what they're doing every day and they would just do it regardless, those are the people who end up making so much money. It's not the money. It's just they like doing one thing, they get really good at it, they're obsessed with it, and then because you're so obsessed with it, they end up being very successful. So I agree with that as well.
What's the best financial advice that you would tell the younger generation coming out of school?
Well, I'll tell you what I told my grown kids. My kids got out of school and didn't know what they wanted to do, and so I told them to go work, go travel, go figure yourself out before you go and invest in yourself, right? Because if you invest in, I don't know what I'm doing, that's not really good.
I love her as a parent. That is fantastic advice. I wish more teachers would say this. I wish more adults would just tell their children this. I think that's fantastic. Now, it's cheaper for her as well to send her kid off for a few months to go and travel than it is to pay a few months of tuition at a college. And she knows too. If she's paying for their education, she knows she's going to be blowing money. She's going to be lighting it on fire if they don't know what they want to do. And they're wasting it at a 4-year, college trying to figure themselves out. No. Work experience, travel, and trying new side hustles. I think those 3 things will get you so much further than, a 2-year generic degree.
You hear a lot of millennials griping about how difficult it is to buy a home right now. Yeah. But what they don't realize is that real estate's all about finding the right time to buy, which in my instance was 30 years ago.
People always ask me, Bill, how'd you time the market so perfectly? And for me, I knew the exact time to buy was when I turned 27, just got married in 1990. I was working at the GM plant at the time, put down $18K on a $90K property, and that is now worth $600K. But you'll notice a lot of millennials are too lazy to do that, and they just end up being born when they're born.
That's a huge mistake.
Yep. That's really accurate. Okay, so as a millennial who also buys real estate, what they're saying isn't exactly out of the ordinary. Real estate prices have skyrocketed so much purely because there's so much more demand and they're not building enough houses. Especially in larger cities, zoning restrictions make it very expensive to build. That means when builders do build properties, they have to be luxury properties. They have to get an ROI on them. So that means only the really rich people are able to buy those houses. So, what they're saying is kind of true.
Do you want to be the first millionaire in your family? Here are my 3 best tips to help you achieve it. Number 1, start investing early. and often.
You know, it's always going to be real advice, by the way, when you get a guy over the age of 50 on TikTok, very little editing, who doesn't really seem to know what he's doing, but is just throwing out banger advice. Like, for some reason, someone like him is going to get the engagement to watch all the way through because someone's like, oh, what does this guy have to say?
And number 2, you have to change your mindset. When you get money, rather than thinking about what can I buy, think about how can I invest it. And number 3, swap out 3 time sucks, you know what they are, and use that time to learn 2 new skill sets.
He's not wrong on any of it. I completely agree with him. I would say the most valuable asset you have when you're broke, and especially when you're young, is time. You have so much time. Spend that time on something valuable. Spend that time on something that's going to get you a return later in life. That could be working for somebody else. It could be volunteering somewhere. It could be shadowing someone in an industry that you want to get into. There's so many things that you could do that just involve your time. Spend your time to eventually make a lot of money in the future.
If you were to go back to when you were in either high school or college, what is the best piece of advice you would give to your younger self?
Same thing I did. Just be a salesperson. Realize that selling isn't about convincing, it's about helping. So when you understand what people need and what they want, and then put yourself in a position to help them, then you can make good things happen and you close deals, and that's how you create companies.
I completely agree with that. There's so many skills that you could learn with sales. It's not just, like Mark said, selling people things. It's about reading people. It's about learning customer service. It's about articulating what you have to offer and how that could benefit somebody else. Just customer service alone, that aspect of sales could take you so far. If you could just do sales, you could practically do anything. It's almost like a license to print money.
If you've made it to 20 and you haven't cracked your first $1 million yet, you have to listen to this.
For some reason, this is my favorite TikTok. I love that. That threw me off. I gotta hand it to him. I love cats.
I have to work. Let's say I got $13 million in the bank, right? If my overhead is $52,000 every month because of my houses and my staff and cars and insurance and all these things I take care of and all these people, that 13 will run down. Because that's just the bills. I still like to live. I'm still a rapper. I still want to go to nice dinners. Eat well. Fly my girl out. Go to see my girl. We still want to do all these things.
Okay, so I get his point, but his math just isn't mathing, okay? So, you know, it's $50,000 a month. He's spending $600,000 a year as his overhead just to break even, okay? $600,000 a year. Now, his point is that if you have $13 million, $600,000 a year, eventually your money's going to run out. But the thing is, if you're $13 million, let's just say it's invested in real estate, and it's making you 5% net, just 5% in real estate, that's $54,000 a month. So if he has $13 million in the bank, properly invested. Now, yes, he's taken on some higher risks to get 5%, but just $13 million invested could mean that he could sustain himself at $54,000 a month. But also, why is he spending $54,000? That seems absurd. Unless this dude just makes a ton of money, he's expecting that to continue a long time. $54,000 a month might be a little too much, but you know what? If he has $13 million in the bank, he could theoretically find a universe where he could sustain that in real estate.
I've been trying to get all my homies to get to like 20, 40 bands, bro, and then call yourself broke. If you live frugally like that for another 6 months and you could bring in another 40, by the time that other 40 get here, if this 40's already invested, by that time that get here, now you got bread. Because now you can make moves, you can make other investments, you can make a play and actually take a loss, you can see what you're good at. A lot of people don't even have enough money to see what they're good at.
Dude, I love that. It's so true. Live like you're broke. Absolutely. That was one of the cornerstones, in my opinion, for how I was able to invest so much. I lived like I was broke. Like, for me, back then, when I was 18 years old, like, spending $5 on a Subway sandwich was a big deal to me. Like, I would think, is today the day that I want to spend $5 on a footlong sandwich? And when I would do that, I'd split it in half, have half for dinner, and then half the next day. I lived like I was absolutely broke all the time. Why did I do that? Well, the reason was so that I could invest the money. I didn't know what I was missing out on. I didn't know that these like amazing dinners and like places existed. I had no concept of that. My threshold was Subway $5 footlong sandwiches. That's all I knew. That's what I was used to. And to me, that was like really good. $5 Subway, a great deal, and the food tastes amazing. So I did not inflate my lifestyle. At the time, I drove a used Toyota Prius. And even when I was making like $200,000 a year, I was still driving a used Toyota Prius. Let that sink in for a moment. A used Toyota Prius. And I'm not talking even like, the fancy ones. I'm talking about like the base model used Toyota Prius. So I could invest absolutely everything. I really tried to get my expenses down to like $1,500 a month, all in on everything for the longest time. Even when I was making, I was making over $1 million a year and still spending, I think at the time my out-of-pocket expense was like $1,800 a month. So I kept that lifestyle as long as I possibly could, and then I invested everything.
I don't buy gifts for my kids. If you ask my wife how many gifts I bought for my kids, I'm not a guy that buys gifts for my kids. I'll say things like, hey, daddy, can we get that Lego? That Lego is $10. Hey, daddy, can we get that video game? That video game is $20.
You know what? I tend to agree with Patrick on that. I think reading is fantastic. I'm just getting back into it. So I've set this thing for the next 30 days. I'm reading 10 pages of a book every single day. And sometimes I just get into the book and I read more than 10 pages. It's really nice. It's enjoyable. I found myself taking in more information. I'm learning a little bit more. So I think it's a fantastic thing, especially as a kid. You're just absorbing all the information out there. I think reading is a skill that it'll last the rest of your life. I think that's quite nice. Now here's the thing though. For an 18-year-old kid to have an extra $500 a month, assuming they're in school, might be a bit difficult. Now it's possible they're in school, they're taking on part-time work. Yeah, it's doable. Overall, I think it's a positive message. Some situations might be difficult to save $500 a month at 18, but absolutely doable if you put your mind to it. And as a parent, I'm all for it.
If you do these 5 things, you will win with money 100% of the time. Number 1, you need to have a written plan, a budget. Second thing is you got to get out of debt. Your most powerful wealth building tool is your income. And when you spend your whole freaking life giving your money to banks who fill up the skyline and have furniture nicer than yours, that makes you stupid.
I would say I disagree on Dave. The only debt that's okay is a long-term mortgage on a cash-flowing rental property or on a primary residence that you could afford at a low interest rate. That one I'm okay with. The first point I agree with.
Number 3. Live on less than you make. You need to decide that my life is not good enough the way it is, and so I am going to control the controllables. I am going to change some things. And then you're going to save some money. You know how rich people get rich? They save money. And if you'll get out of debt and you'll invest and you live on less than you make and you have a plan, then you can do the last one. It's the most fun you'll ever have with money. You can be outrageously generous.
I agree with Dave, but I think he's missing a point there. I think there's a point 4 that was somehow cut out. It was probably subscribe and get your free stocks down below in the description because those could be worth all the way up to a few $1,000s when you make a deposit. It's a paid affiliate link. That means I get a commission, but you also get some free stocks. So I think it's pretty good. If you sign up without it, you don't get free stocks. So enjoy the free stocks. And I agree with Dave overall. It's really common sense stuff. Really easy. Live on less than you make. Such a simple concept, but it's hard for people not to spend what they have if they're making a surplus.
What is something that you think people think is important when it comes to money, but you realize that's not really the right focus?
Net worth. Net worth is a crap indicator of real success.
Yeah, what he's going to say is instead it's cash flow. It doesn't matter if you're worth $100 million if it's illiquid in a company that could tank to zero the next day versus someone who has $5 million a year in cash flow coming in from rental properties, but their net worth is lower because they're leveraged out the wazoo. I mean, net worth I think is a fair indicator. But, in certain situations, cash flow also matters, and how much you make relative to how much you spend, I think, is a great indicator. Overall, I agree with him, and I tend to think that he is right. But I think savings in conjunction with having a high income is obviously what makes a lot of money. So with that said, you guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, feel free to subscribe. Get your free stocks down below in the description. Thank you so much, and Happy New Year. Until next time.